Hello. So one of the questions that I often get asked as a PhD student is about the process of submitting a scientific paper to a journal. So I'm just gonna briefly talk about my experiences. So it's very different for different journals. I always submit to MNRAS, monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society. So I'm just gonna kind of explain what the process was like for me when I've submitted my papers there. So I've submitted and had published 3 papers in MNRAS, and yeah, so I've kind of had some experience with that process. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So assuming that you've written your paper, your supervisor is happy with it, it's all finished, you submit it to MNRAS. If you write your paper in Overleaf, you can submit straight through there. If not, you can submit from their website. And once you have submitted your paper to them, then the journal will decide whether or not they think it's acceptable to be published in their journal, whether they think it's relevant to what they publish. And this is decided by the editors. And assuming that they think it's fine, which it probably is, otherwise you probably haven't submitted it there, then they will send it off to reviewers. And reviewers are basically anyone that works in your field, who they think have published similar work to your paper, so that they are kind of qualified to comment on the scientific correctness of your paper. So yeah, it'll be sent to your reviewers. You can request not to have certain people if they are competing research groups to you in a particular area. So you can say, these are my competitors, so please don't send it to them. And equally, if you're in a small field like me, you it's relatively niche, then you can recommend people. You can say, these people are all people that work in this field who would be able to give a good review of my paper. And you have to give quite a lot. You can't just be like, you should ask this one person. And they may or may not choose people from your list, but it can be helpful for them if you are in quite a niche field. So yeah, it gets sent to your reviewers. Your reviewer will then have, I think it's 3 weeks, it might be a bit longer, I can't actually remember. But your reviewer has a certain amount of time to comment on your paper, and then they will send this back to the journal, and the journal will send it back to you. And the reviewer can either reject your paper outright. They can say, there are so many problems with this absolutely can't be published as it is. They might say it needs major revisions, so that might involve rerunning some of your code or collecting more data and things like this, or a full rewrite of your paper. If they think there are quite a lot of problems, they might say that it has minor revisions. So this is, relatively common, and it's generally, I would like you to add some of these references, and I think you should comment on these few things. And typically, if you get that kind of report back, it doesn't take too long to deal with, because they're not actually asking a lot from you, and they're not asking you to redo a lot of work either. So yeah, or they could say, yeah, accept this, it's absolutely fine as it is, I have nothing bad to say about this at all. And this pretty much never happens, because there's always things that we can do to improve our work, our writing, to make it more clear for the reader, or just generally a better paper. So that can happen, but it's pretty rare. I don't think it happens very often. So that's what happens once the reviewer has sent it back to you. So once you've got your reviewer's report back, you can make all of your edits and to your paper. Like I said, sometimes this doesn't take very long. Sometimes this can take a really, really long time if you've been asked to rewrite everything or redo things. So from this point on, I'm going to assume it wasn't outright rejected. You've made all your edits, you're sending it back to the journal. And once you've done that, you resubmit through their portal, their website, and it might go back to the reviewer at this point, or it might not. It depends on if the reviewer has asked to see your paper again. So if you have got a report back from your reviewer that says, you know, yeah, just add some references and maybe rewrite this, or can you comment on this? They probably are going to say, I don't need to see this paper again. Like, once the author has done these things, it's totally fine. If you have been given a report that says major revisions, then they probably, although not necessarily, might say, I want to see this next version of the paper. So yes, it may or may not go back to the reviewer at this point. So assuming that you've done all of these edits and it's all fine, it has or hasn't gone back to the reviewer, but either way, it's all, they've decided if it has that it's fine, then your paper is then accepted. So the journal will then accept your paper for publishing. It feels like this should be the end of the road, but it isn't. So at this point, if your paper has been accepted, the journal will then get back to you and say, yeah, that's fine. We would like you to upload your final version of the paper and all the figures at this point. And that's, just to make sure that they're not publishing like old versions of the paper before, without having dealt with all the reviewers' comments. So yeah, you get these things called proofs back, which is very similar, I guess, to the publishing industry for non-academic things. So you get your proofs back, and you have to check that you're okay with everything and upload your final documents. And then that's it. Your journal will then, or the journal, in this case MNRAS, will upload it to publish it and upload it to their website. And if you're in astrophysics, you can then upload it to arXiv, where kind of like all astro papers are uploaded and open access for everyone. So you can also go onto arXiv and look at all of the research going on. It's spelt weirdly, it's ARXIV, arXiv. You might have decided to put it onto arXiv before it's got published. That also happens. To kind of like, get your name on, this is the research that I have done. And if you do that, it's quite typical to kind of, you can then like upload later versions so that people can track on arXiv, this is how the paper evolved. I never put my paper onto arXiv until after it's been finally accepted. There's never really been a point for me. I don't work in a hugely competitive field, and I would rather that what was out there was the final checked peer-reviewed paper, not the one before that. So yes, that's pretty much everything I think I have to say about this. So I hope that this has kind of lifted some of the cloud of confusion that I think some people have about this topic and answered a few of your questions about this. If not, you can drop questions in the comments and I will try and answer all of them to the best of my abilities. Yeah, like I said at the beginning, it does vary a lot from journal to journal. And this is just kind of like my experiences in MNRAS, which is a very common one to submit to in Astro. So yeah, thanks for listening if you made it to the end.